Hello, community. Good afternoon. This is RevvED Up with Revolución Educativa. My name is Trisha McGee. I am our Director of Communications, but I am also a parent here in the Kansas City Public School District and, surprise, surprise, an uncontested school board candidate. So on April 16th, I will be representing subdistrict number 3. So I've invited a friend and colleague to join us today to talk about the school bond. Nickalas, do you want to say hi? Introduce yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Nickalas Collins, a big proud supporter of Kansas City Public Schools, community activist, and also just thank you for having me on here.
You know, I know a lot of folks have gone to events that are formally hosted by the district. I know there are parents organizing, and so there's a lot of information out there. I do want to start just by going over what a school bond is and what it is. And so I've heard you explain it before, so I'd love if you'd walk those that haven't seen those presentations yet, just kind of high level through that for folks.
Absolutely. So a school bond is a funding mechanism or a way that a school district can get money, a large amount of money, typically for capital projects, so building repairs and renovations. But what makes it unique is that it's from the taxpayers and is voted on. So the taxpayers actually have to agree to let the school have this money. And this, in particular, this bond is going to be paid for by an increase in property taxes.
Property taxes. I know that's been a hot topic here in Kansas City recently. For those that might be a little hesitant because property taxes increased recently, why should folks consider voting yes for increasing their property taxes on schools? Does this happen frequently? How often does this happen?
No, and that is a great question. The big thing right now is Kansas City Public Schools has not had a voter approved bond since 1967. So as of now, we have been operating out of our standard amount of money and dollars that we get from the state and from the federal government. And yeah, I know that that's definitely a hot button with everything that's been going on. But what I will tell you is that Kansas City Public Schools currently has about $1.3 billion of needs in both with our learning environments and with our buildings. We will be going to the taxpayers for $474 million, which isn't quite that whole number. But one of the big things here is that we have a lot of need that has been building up over time. And so this bond that we're asking for is going to start addressing those big ticket items such as air conditioning, roofing, and major repairs to our buildings.
1967. So that was more than 20 years before I was born. I don't know how old you are, Nickalas. I won't put you on the spot like that, but that's a long time to not invest in one of our only remaining public institutions in this country, which is public education. And so I think I'd invite folks to consider, especially given the federal landscape right now and like funding disappearing, the Department of Education either not existing or changing significantly. If our schools already have a deficit, any schools, not just KCPS to be clear, if our schools are already struggling to meet needs, whether it be building maintenance updates or teacher salary increases, with teachers in our district did get last year, as they should, because Missouri used to be 50th in the entire United States on low teacher pay, and we all value teachers. So there's a lot of uncertainty, I would say, at the federal and state levels. And so this is one way that folks can say, you know what, no, we here in Kansas City definitely support our students and support our schools, and we're wanting to invest, even though that isn't the $1.3 billion. Part of that to make sure that we're making a difference, I think sounds really important for sure. So before we move on past this $474 million, what does that actually mean for like the average person, the average homeowner? Because I can't spend that much money for sure. And so when people are thinking about what they're going to decide, how much is it going to cost them either per year or per month?
Yes, so the average home in Kansas City is roughly $180,000. So to kind of round up to about a $200,000 home, you would be paying approximately about 64 cents per day for this bond, which is roughly about $19 per month. And kind of the nitty gritty of that is that the bond would be a 61 cent tax per $100 assessed value.
Okay. So that makes sense. So it's like my Netflix subscription monthly, or it's 64 cents a day. Nothing costs 64 cents. Like maybe a cup of coffee used to cost that. I don't know how to compare that daily, but that's a much lower number, I think, than I was expecting when we're talking about, $474 million. I thought it would be quite a bit more of a burden on property owners or homeowners, but it's not quite as much as I was thinking.
Yeah, and I will say one of the more interesting things is that Kansas City is the only city that does not have a current tax levy. So all the other surrounding cities, Lee Summit, North Kansas City, Grandview, already have a tax levy that they're paying for. Even with this 61-cent increase for Kansas City Public Schools, we would still be in the bottom three of tax levies for the area. So that means even with this large $474 million that will be this 61-cent tax levy, we will still be towards the very bottom of tax levies for the surrounding cities.
So this is still getting us to a bare minimum, is what you're saying. A bare minimum burden on taxpayers.
Correct.
Yeah. It's been interesting in my uncontested race. I now have people sharing their opinions with me that don't live in Kansas City, Missouri, or their kids don't attend KCPS. And sometimes people will say, "Oh, KCPS, that's tough, huh?" And there seems to be this public perception of KCPS pass. We have had so many gains and academic improvements in the past years, fully accredited. So I think sometimes I've heard Dr. Collier say people are thinking about the KCPS of 20 years ago, not the KCPS of today. And my invitation to folks, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, is not just thinking about the KCPS that is having successes and supporting students now, but like, what do we want KCPS to look like in 10 years and 20 years? And so it's not fair to our students that are there now or students that might be attending in the future to decide not to support them like every other city in the surrounding area does their students.
I mean, absolutely. And just, over the last couple of years, we've been seeing great things come out of Kansas City Public Schools. Our enrollment is skyrocketing. Some of our schools are literally busting at the seam, which is a great problem to have if you are a public school. But also you're seeing higher graduation rates. Some of the highest we've seen in the last 10 years. We're seeing rising test scores. This past year, our APR was 73.2%, which means that we are continuing to have our full accreditation. And when you look at all the things that we have going on within our schools, we have expanded access to the fine arts and having orchestra and band at all of our elementary schools, an increase in dual language offerings, increase in CTE offerings. You're seeing Kansas City Public Schools really explode onto the scene, but I say that, but at the same time, we've been doing this. This is something that we've been gearing up for, and we've been working in this, and in the background to make sure it's happening, to make sure that our students do have the best education possible, and that when you think of Kansas City Public Schools, it's a destination district. You want your students inside of Kansas City Public Schools because of all the things that we can offer, and that's really gaining a lot of traction now, especially with the bond out there. But this story, has been really building itself over the last 5-10 years.
I love that you bring up, first of all, as a former orchestra kid who still plays the viola and someone who is bilingual, I love to hear that more students in our school district are having access to high quality orchestra band programs in elementary school and dual language programs. Here at RevvED, I'd be remiss to say if we don't talk about our increasing enrollment, and a large amount of that increase are Latino and Hispanic parents, students, families, who many of which come from naturally multilingual, talented households. And so when we're talking about the specialized programs like Dual Carver, like Foreign Language Academy, like the older upper secondary program at Paseo, where those kids can be moving into, maintaining multilingualism should be a priority. But if we can't maintain buildings, if we can't have the very basics funded, it can be difficult to continue to offer those. And then beyond our Hispanic and Latino families that we're very focused on building collective power with here at RevvED, I mean, I've known people that have moved into district for the Mandarin program at FLA. I know folks are really interested in some of the things that we're offering. And so keeping that at the forefront of like, look at all of these great things that are doing and what else can be done if we invest in kids. So I have one question for you, because there are parents that are organizing other parents or having conversations about relational voting. Like, this is why it's important to me. Would you consider voting? Are you registered to vote? And I have a couple people that I want to talk to personally. My brother and my sister-in-law, for example, and all of their friends. They're all what I would call double income, no kid crew, because they're by choice not having kiddos. And so I would love to talk to someone who is also engaged but doesn't currently have kids. What might be some ways that I can talk to them, or why would someone that doesn't have kids decide that they want to invest in the future of schools in Kansas City?
That is a great question. And sometimes I know that can be difficult to try to get that point across. But the important thing is when you look at a city and you look at its ecosystem and how all things are equal. Well, there are some parts that are not equal. They are more important, and one of them is education. Education is the backbone of any city, but in particular Kansas City, because it sprawls. We have, I think, 30,000 kids inside of Kansas City, the Kansas City Public School District. We want those students to be successful. We want them to succeed because they are going to be the cornerstone and the foundation and the backbone of this city. Be it 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, we want these students to have every opportunity possible to become critical thinkers, to become engineers, to become those people in society that bring the best and brightest out of all of us. And so that starts with a solid education system. And if you want to see that, and you want to build that foundation, you have to invest in public education.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk in the past 10, 15 years about the linkage from education and crime, or the school to prison pipeline, if you will. And I think sometimes people forget that's not just a concept or a theory we talk about. If we want students to grow into adults that are thriving, whether they're if they're headed to university and going into a career that way, if they're at manual career tech and heading into the trade, having the skills that you need to thrive as an adult is how we avoid people falling into a life of crime. And so I just want to remind folks, like, that's a reality, not just a concept that we talk about in online circles. And especially, I think, in our political climate currently, folks may be shying away from having those conversations that they feel might be DEI, but I don't know if it's DEI if we're investing in people. That's just um, basic community building. I'm not sure how to phrase that. That doesn't sound political.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now we are at a critical moment. After COVID, we saw students' minds change, how learning has to change, and our teachers are keeping up with this, making adaptations. Well, your buildings also, you also have to have those environments that are conducive to this new ways that students like to collaborate and think and do project-based learning. Yeah, we were moving there, but COVID really accelerated how students are learning, and that idea of collaboration and enhanced learning environments that support that. And the good thing about this bond is it will help with that and help buildings get to those points.
I'm going to take a quick moment to present the KCPS has a website, kcpsbond.org. I'm just going to add it here so people can see. If you've never heard any information about the board and today's the first time you're learned Bond, this is the website you can go to. But there's also another website that's not run directly by the district that I do want to present as well. And that is, yes, for KCPS kids. Share. Let's make sure that I'm showing you the right one. The stopping in between sharing live is always fun. Let me take that out. Because folks have asked me, okay, I'm a registered voter, like I know how to do that, that's fine. It's the folks that have never registered to vote before that I really want to be sure that they have access to the information. And so the vote is on April 8th. When is the voter registration deadline if you want to participate?
March 12th, right?
March 12th, tick, tick, that is soon. So I want to be sure that folks know that if they have never voted before, and this will be their first time, congratulations, way to leverage your power and your vote for kids. There we go. hours for for KCPS kids. So they need to do that by March 12th. What I think is really cool in Missouri is that we have early voting as an option. So starting March 25th, I believe, if you're busy on April 8th, or if you have a 9 to 5 job, you can't leave, or something like that, people can start voting at the end of March, but you've got to be registered to vote and ready. Okay, and then this, I will drop these links in the comments, but Yes for Casey Kids has additional information about if someone is like, yes, you know what, I'm all in. I'm going to convince all my friends that have no kids. I'm going to convince my neighbors. I'm going to convince my coworkers. They can pop in here and see ways that they can support that campaign, whether it be canvassing or sending out information, attending events. So I think that that's a really cool opportunity too. And I think we should just end on maybe some conversation or reminders how folks that are not eligible to vote, whether it be due to age or resident status, how can those folks be helping with this like public perception and convincing people to vote yes, people that are able to vote? Because I think sometimes we leave that out of the conversation. And there's a lot of really big KCPS fans out there that may just not be able to do that. So I welcome any thoughts you have on it. I, of course, have plenty of thoughts, but
You know, the biggest thing is we always say this, but Kansas City is a small place. It's a big city, sprawling city, but our networks and our circles are actually a lot smaller than than we think. And so just spreading the word of mouth, and when you're having those conversations with individuals who may be on the fence, tell them to reach out to the bond, or I'm sorry, the Say Yes campaign, or even to the school district. Like, hey, can I take a tour of these schools? I want to learn more about the bond, but I also want to learn more about what this bond is going to help or what it's going to go toward. The thing I will say, the KCPS has been very transparent this whole process. And one of the things that they want to do is continue that transparency. And so if you want to see the school, or if you want to see what these projects are going to do, or what the money will be spent on, please reach out. And to our advocates out there, please tell them to tell your friends, come, talk to KCPS. Come talk to them. They want to have that conversation, because this is going to be truly transformational for the district, but it'll also be truly transformational for the city as well. And so there's a lot of good things happening. There's we have a world-class football team. We have a world-class tech sector. So now let's have a world-class education system to go with it.
You know what? I love that. I can't think of anything else to add except to say that I invite everyone to register to vote by March 12th, like Nickalas told us, and convince your friends and family. People remember connections that they have made personally. I just actually ran into someone and she said, congratulations on your thing. I saw it on your Facebook, and I couldn't remember where I knew her from. And she said, you were the first person actually that helped me enroll my daughter in kindergarten back in 2018. She's doing really well now. She's a gymnast. And that was so many years ago, but people remember the personal connection. So whether it's that you're a parent and you want to share how well your kids are doing in schools, or you're someone that's like a community auntie or uncle or a business person, if you don't have a personal connection to schools, somebody does. And so it lies on us folks that are already advocating, already all in, to be sharing those positive stories and those personal connections. Because I really, truly think relationship building like that is how we decide to make Kansas City's public education system shine as brightly as our sports and tech sectors, for sure. So Nick, any last words before we end here? We're right at 20 minutes. I really appreciate you taking the time today.
No, KCPS holds a very special place in my heart, and it is doing amazing things, and it's doing great things for our Latino students and our Hispanic communities. And so this bond will only help strengthen that. And so, if there's ever anything that you need or want more information, please go to those websites or that you're going to post here.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all.